Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Govs on the Go Faculty Spotlight, a podcast featuring faculty in the College of Arts and Letters here at Austin Peay State University. My name is Dr. Buzz Hoon. I'm the Dean of the College. I'm also the host of the podcast. And today I'm talking with Dr. Cameron Sutt, professor in the Department of History and Philosophy here at Austin Peay. Dr. Sutt, so glad to have you on the podcast.
Well, thanks. It's fun to be here.
Yeah, and just as a side note, you were one of the first individuals I got to meet. You were on the search committee that that brought me here, so I'm sure people are now blaming you for all this. But, you know, I do appreciate that you, and I felt like, honestly, you were one of the best representatives on that search committee, and and it's been my pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. So it's our intent here today for the rest of the world to know a little bit about you. So I do know that you're a Midwesterner and the fact that you come from the Midwest, but how did you end up at Austin Peay?
Well, I was on the job market. I just finished up my doctorate, and I was living in Europe at the time, and so I just put out applications, and I really wanted to come back to the Midwest or the South. I'd lived in Europe for several years, and just kind of wanted to come back home, so to speak. So when Austin Peay came calling, asked for an interview, I came over, and I enjoyed my time here in the interview, and they hired me, and the rest is history, as they say.
And how many years have you been here?
This is my 15th year. So I've been here 15 years. So.
That's good. And it's
Time
amazing.
flies.
It's amazing how many people have been here for 30, 40, 50 years. So it really does show you that a lot of times people come with the intent to, as their first job, not really knowing that they'll remain here. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, when we came, we had done a lot of traveling, a lot of living different places, and so we were kind of ready to settle down, and we just were fortunate it ended up at Austin Peay because it's a good place for us, and we felt like we fit in really well, and so we've been happy here.
Great. So. Now, you have taught a number of different courses in the history department, and I want to get your viewpoint on what are sort of the advantages, what do you like about teaching survey courses or a major course or graduate courses? What are the differences, what are the advantages?
Well, for me, the advantages, I really like getting to know the students. I mean, I don't know what that sounds like, but it's the truth. I enjoy getting to know people. I think that's why I became a historian, because I enjoy people. And as historians, we study, dead people. But I like getting to know how they lived, and so I'm a social historian. So I like studying society and what it looked like in the Middle Ages, and so I think. In all my classes, the survey classes, I like interacting with the students and sharing with them this, and hopefully they pick up some of the interest in it. And with the upper division courses, of course, you can develop maybe more intimate connection with students because some of them are your advisees or you have them in several classes. Students seem to kind of gravitate to particular professors for their teaching style or maybe their, the subject matter. And so you get sort of a coterie of students who regularly attend your class. You get to know them, and it's loads of fun. And then at the culmination of it is at graduation and seeing them walk across the stage. That's fun.
Yeah.
So the first couple of years, graduation was, if I'm going to be honest, a bit onerous. But as you start having your own students walk across the stage, it gets more fun. So.
Yeah, and that's what I've noticed too. I finally get to know some of the students. Yeah. There's a difference between recognizing them and knowing them.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. That's right, exactly.
So, part of what you have the joy of doing is seeing them progress through the major. Yeah. Sometimes finding finding the subject matter interesting, and I do agree that many of the majors within our college, we are storytellers. In your case, you're telling the story of things that happened in the past.
Right.
And yet, when people hear you tell those stories, they become really interested in it. And so a long way to get to this question about Dr. Sutt. How did you find your subject area, and why did that interest you so much?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I have always been interested in the Middle Ages, and initially it was like knights and, this kind of stuff. For some reason that interested me even as a child. But it was actually a series of sort of popular books by Joseph and Francis Guise, Life in a Medieval Castle, Life in a Medieval Village, Life in a Medieval City, and reading those and just seeing what it was like for your average person to go about life in the Middle Ages. Something about that just drew me in. It's familiar because it's a Western world and it's a Christian world, but it's so different. So it just drew me in. Just the daily life of regular people. I don't know how to explain it beyond that. I just found it fascinating. That's what I wanted to study.
So one of the little secrets about you that I have found out from our conversations that you speak Hungarian.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that, and you're welcome to reveal that, but you also speak other languages. And part of that is, has that helped you, obviously, in your research?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So students come to me all the time, and they want to do history. They want to study history, and I tell them for pretty much any field outside of maybe the East Asia, they need to learn French and German if they want to study at the graduate level, because the French and the Germans have been studying and researching this a long time. So you've got at the graduate level, you've got to be able to at least read those languages. And then if you have a particular area of expertise or interest, obviously that's outside of those, you've got to learn that as well, be it Spanish or in my case Hungarian. So I came to Hungary accidentally, in a sense. I remember as an undergraduate, I had a friend who was going to go study abroad, do a study abroad in Hungary. And they were trying to get me to go. And I'm like, what do I care about? I don't want to go to Hungary. I don't care about Hungary. And then later in grad school, I met a woman who, later became my wife. She's Hungarian. And so because of that, I developed a keen interest, shall we say, in Hungary and Hungarian history, particularly interesting. And so I sort of found my niche there, studying Hungarian history. So,
yeah. And part of your research also has involved that society has used, for instance, slavery,
right.
And how that's certainly been maybe a part of the coin of the realm, some way for people, and so how do you tell students about that subject area, and how do you introduce them and communicate that and tell that story?
Well, it starts off in my the survey course I teach on campus to freshmen, sophomores is early world history. And I mean, when we start off at the very beginning in Mesopotamia, I start talking about Mesopotamian society. And slavery is there. I mean, unfortunately, it's a pretty common phenomenon in human societies. And so because my area of research particularly was agricultural slavery or slavery in the Hungarian kingdom. So the Hungarian kingdom had slave labor up until around 1300. At least that's my main argument. And so because of that, I've studied a lot of pre-modern slavery. And so, in other words, not the American variety. And so it's there from the beginning, and there's a big anthropological study that was done in the 80s of cultures through time and space that we have enough data to investigate, and fully about a third of them were slave societies. So it's an unfortunate aspect of humanity. So that's, it's been an important sort of area of study in my field.
And one of the ways that you have already alluded to that's helped you in your research is the fact that you have traveled across the world and been to many different countries. So for our students that haven't traveled yet, how do you communicate to them that this is going to open up a window for them that will help them in maybe studying history?
Yeah, well, it is true that one of the things, I started studying history and I was living in Hungary. So it's a complicated story, but I wasn't actually a historian before I moved to Hungary. I had studied English prior to that. And so I was over there and, just being surrounded by, the architecture that opens you up to, this is sort of it's a real thing. Yeah. And so, we have multiple opportunities to study abroad at Austin Peay, and I encourage my students, if at all possible, to do that. Obviously, even if they don't want to study history per se, it's just sort of essential, I think, to be a well-rounded, experienced individual, to have been overseas and to see that. And in my case, it was particularly important because, you're there's a castle here, and you start thinking, I wonder what's happened here, why this is here, whose was this, all this sort of thing.
Yeah, so you want to know the stories.
I do want to know those stories, right? I do want to know those stories.
Now, you've also served as a chair for the department, and you're now back in faculty, but I'm always interested to see what was your viewpoint on what did you like about being a chair, and what are some of the challenges of being a chair?
Well, what I liked about being the chair was you have the opportunity to maybe focus the department in a direction, that I thought it should go, or maybe what we should do, and start having conversations with other faculty as a whole and department meetings that I think our department need to take care of, and directions, and I like the opportunity to have a role in that. The challenges are, as a faculty member, my problems are my problems. Yeah. And the chairs, right? And so when you're the chair on the other side, everybody's problem is your problem. And so you have to sort of get involved in all these different areas and help trying to find a solution that everybody can, be happy with, or at least accept, right? And so that's a challenge, and it's kind of a stressful part of the job. But I so enjoy being faculty again. I thoroughly enjoy the classroom, and I like doing the research. So as I tell people, I'm happy with my books and my students. And now the students may not be so happy to be in my class, but that's another question.
Why wouldn't they want to hear stories about history, especially from the Middle Ages?
Yeah. Well, one of the things I end up doing a lot, so in my surveys, when we get to the Middle Ages, I do a lot of myth busting. There's a lot of myths about the Middle Ages. It's super dirty. People are uber religious. It's, all these things. And hey, guess what? They're like us, right? Now, maybe they're not as hyper clean as we are, because we're a little crazy in 21st century America. We're a little too clean, I think. With hand sanitizing, wash, and all kinds of stuff. But it's not like it's typically depicted. It's maybe closer, believe it or not, to our grandparents and the way they bathed, right? So anyway, that's just one. So I do a lot of myth busting, I think, when it comes to Middle Ages. So.
I'm sure it's very interesting, and
I think so.
And I'm again, thank you for being on the podcast today and sharing a little bit about your time here at Austin Peay.
Oh yeah, it's my pleasure.
And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners out there for joining us. We will continue to profile some of the outstanding professors we have here in the College of Arts and Letters at Austin Peay State University. So until next time, stay safe, take care, and God bless.